ADR. Promoting dialogue.
Good evening and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. Minority in Ghana's parliament demands new chair for vetting probe.
The gravity of this matter necessitates the appointment of an impartial and untainted chair who commands the trust of all stakeholders.
Constitutional Court in Benin refuses to rule on term limits. Drug regulator in Nigeria seeks death penalty for drug peddlers.
So I want death penalty because you don't need to put a gun on the head of a child before you kill that child.
And Liberia's President Boakai launches electronic government procurement system to enhance efficiency in public service. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is a more edit with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast. Let's begin in Mali, where the Minister of National Reconciliation brought together the various armed movements to discuss the implementation of the new inter-Malian agreement, the integration of 2,000 fighters into the army, and the reintegration of 1,000 others could begin as early as February. Abdullah Hassan brings us details in this report.
General Ismail Wagi, Minister of National Reconciliation, brought together the signatory armed groups on Thursday to implement the presidential commitment to integrate or reintegrate 3,000 fighters. Al-Bakar Hamadou, political secretary of the Movement for the Salvation of Azawad, MSA, said the minister announced an imminent start of the integration of 2,000 people from the northern populations into the armed forces, stressing the urgency of an operation that could begin as early as February. Hamadou noted that the various movements have expressed their support for the process, adding that the groups are waiting for the implementation of the quotas. For his part, Abadin Ud Muhammad of the Arab Movement of Azawad, a position supported by the Secretary General of Gasha, said they have agreed and are ready to participate. The minister also consulted with other armed groups including Dana Ambasogo and the Donsos. Integration into the army is essential for reconciliation and the return of peace, said Al-Maulud Ongoiba, spokesman for Dana Ambasogo. These consultations are ongoing to finalize the process of disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration, the cornerstone of the new inter-Malian agreement.
Abdullah Hassan filed that report to cross over to Ghana, where the Minority Leader of Parliament, Alexander Fenyo Markin, has accused the chairman of the ad hoc committee probing the vetting chaos, Emmanuel Bezra, of exhibiting bias. The Futa MP is therefore demanding that the Ho West MP recuse himself from the ongoing probe, alleging that Mr. Bezra made public statements that undermine the committee's neutrality. In a memorandum addressed to Speaker Alban Bagby, Mr. Fenyo Markin alleged a breach of impartiality and confidentiality which he claims have compromised the integrity of the committee's work. Notably, Mr. Bezra reportedly accused the Minority Leader of instructing his colleagues not to participate in the probe and claimed that an NPP MP withdrew from the proceedings on Mr. Fenyo Markin's directive. However, Mr. Fenyo Markin argued that these comments violated the Speaker's directive to avoid public debate on the committee's work.
By declaring individuals culpable before they have even appeared before the committee, the chairman, Honorable Bezra, has demonstrated an unacceptable level of prejudice, rendering him unfit to continue in his role. His prior endorsement of disorderly conduct is in direct conflict with the responsibilities entrusted to him in this investigation. Given his publicly stated positions, he lacks the neutrality required to oversee a fair and balanced inquiry into the very conduct he has previously condoned. The clear conflict of interest further disqualifies him from chairing the committee. Amongst other things, he was quoted to have said that if anybody ventures or takes his seat, he was going to be the person. Ladies and gentlemen, the gravity of this matter necessitates the appointment of an impartial and untainted chair who commands the trust of all stakeholders, including witnesses, members of parliament, and the general public. The Minority Caucus strongly urges the immediate replacement of Honorable Emmanuel Bezra to restore credibility to the committee's work. Only through a fair, unbiased, and transparent process can we ensure that the findings of the committee are accepted and its recommendations duly implemented.
That was Minority Leader of Ghana's Parliament, Alexander Fenyo Markin, speaking there. Well known for overseeing the historic 2016 election that marked the end of Yahya Jammeh's rule in the Gambia, Alieu Momad Njie has announced that he leaves a mixed legacy between electoral giants against and disputes over his continued tenure. Following criticism over the extension of his term, Alieu Momad Njie, chairman of Gambia's Independent Electoral Commission, retires on Thursday. Well, Christopher Tisho brings us details in this report.
Njie's election administration became problematic for the largest opposition party, particularly after the United Democratic Party's leader, Ousainou Darboe, fell out with President Adama Barrow after the December 4, 2021 presidential election resulted in President Barrow's second term. The UDP petitioned the Supreme Court, claiming that Barrow and his party members promised cash in exchange for votes. It further claimed that the election was illegitimate because many foreign nationals had purportedly voted, among other issues. The court eventually rejected the petition, paving the path for Barrow to serve the legitimate second term. Although Alieu Momad Njie oversaw the implementation on the spot counting, which helped to create a more transparent presidential election in 2016, his failure to update and replace the antiquated marbles and drums voting system with paper ballots and his inaction to mandate voting by the Gambian diaspora will continue to be the dark spot in his tenure as the IEC chairman. Meanwhile, the formal inquiry into issues brought up by the National Audit Office, NAO, report on the Independent Electoral Commission, IEC's financial practices has clouded the final year of Alieu Momad Njie's tenure. Alieu Momad Njie's retirement comes at a crucial time as the country prepares for the 2026 election, with concerns over who will succeed him and how the IEC will navigate forthcoming political contests.
Chris Vatsisho filed that report.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
In Benin, questions have been raised about the perceived extension of the term limit to President Patrice Talon, which ends in 2026. However, despite the assurances of the outgoing president, each end of the mandate raises questions. Recall in 2019, the constitution was amended without touching the lock of term limits. Nevertheless, this modification can put the counters at zero in terms of the mandate's exercise. Francis Boniface completes the story.
Christian Lanyide, a minister during the presidency of former President Matthew Kerikou and former candidates for the presidency of the Republic, had appealed to the Constitutional Court, which issued its decision on Thursday. The court did not answer on the merits to say whether or not they are in a third republic that erases the first two terms of President Patrice Talon, bringing the counters to zero, which can allow him to be a candidate. According to the constitutional experts, only the President of the Republic can ask for an opinion from the court. For this reason, the application was declared inadmissible. While the debate may not be over, an activist of one of the parties supporting the head of state has lodged an appeal on the same subject, which will be examined on February 13. Jurists acting as custodians of the Constitution have urged the court to declare the approach unconstitutional. However, President Patrice Talon has repeated several times that he is going well in 2026 and recalls that it was he who, on the occasion of the amendment, made the provision on the limit of terms to 2 more difficult.
Francis Boniface with that report. In neighboring Nigeria, a coalition of civil society organizations has called for urgent government action following reports of human rights violations against deported citizens. At a news conference, the Civil Society Network on Migration and Development and the Network Against Child Trafficking, Abuse and Labor highlighted concerns over mistreatment during deportation processes. The British Osman Mara reports.
The groups cited the case of Bright Obasui, a Nigerian deportee from Germany who arrived in Lagos on January 22, 2025 in critical condition. Obasui, who has documented medical conditions, was reportedly declared unfit for travel but was deported regardless. According to Dr. Emeka Obiezu, national coordinator of CSO NetMed, Obasui described being forcibly removed from his home, physically restrained and subjected to degrading treatment.
Bright described being violently dragged from his home at midnight, brutally beaten, chained and subjected to degrading treatment by German police, immigration officers, and other collaborating agencies. Despite legal and medical intervention aimed at halting his deportation, Bright was forcibly administered medications, removed from his house, and deported in chains.
The coalition outlined key concerns including medical neglect, psychological trauma, and violations of international human rights standards. They also raised concerns over reports of deportees disappearing without thorough investigation. In response, the groups are urging the Nigerian government to launch an independent inquiry into the matter and ensure accountability for violations.
Launch an immediate, transparent investigation into the allegations of human rights violations during deportation, particularly by German authorities, and determine the whereabouts of the other unconscious individuals. Guarantee that deportees are received with dignity and provided with immediate medical and psychological support upon arrival. Grant civil society organizations the authority to participate in pre-departure and post-arrival activities to monitor deportees' conditions and safeguard their human rights.
The coalition plans to march to the National Commission for Refugees, Migrants, and Internally Displaced Persons to further press their demands. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
Meanwhile, Nigeria's drug regulator, NAFDAC, has proposed a death penalty for drug peddlers following the proliferation of counterfeit products. Speaking on local media, head of the National Agency for Food and Drugs Administration and Control, NAFDAC, Professor Mojisola Adeyeye, noted that only steep penalties will deter peddlers, especially when it leads to the death of children. The NAFDAC DG is also seeking the cooperation of the judiciary and the National Assembly to make such a move a reality. According to her, the agency is open to partnering with lawmakers and other stakeholders on the matter. While NAFDAC has a lot on its plate in stemming drug peddling, Adeyeye decried the shortage of manpower in the agency. She believes with about 2,000 staff members nationwide and limited funding, NAFDAC is constrained in carrying out its activities.
You cannot fight substandard falsified medicine in isolation. The agency can do as much as they can, but if there is no deterrent, there's going to be a problem. Okay, somebody brought in tramadol that can kill, 225 milligrams that can kill anybody, fry the brain, and you give a judgment of 5 years in prison or 250,000 naira. Who doesn't know that that person will go to the ATM and get 250,000 naira? That is part of our problem. There is no strict measures to deter from repeating the same thing. But we can do as much as we can, but if our law is not strong enough or the judiciary is not strong enough to stand up, we're going to have a problem. We have open markets in Nigeria. Kano, Aba, Onitsha, and Lagos. Before my time, there was a plan to remove the open market to what is called coordinated wholesale centers, where NAFDAC will be there, police will be there, Pharmacy Council of Nigeria will be there to monitor. So I want death penalty because you don't need to put a gun on the head of a child before you kill that child. You do not need to put a gun on the head of a child before you kill that child. Just give that child bad medicine. I'm hoping that judges are listening to me. You don't need to kill a child because the child cannot complain. Oh, this medicine doesn't work. It will just be, slipping away and die. So our judiciary system must be strong enough. But we are working with National Assembly to make our penalties very stiff.
Professor Mojisola Adeyeye is the Director General of the National Agency for Food and Drugs Administration and Control, NAFDAC. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM Dakar, and online on wadr.org. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Minority in Ghana's parliament demands new chair for vetting a probe. Constitutional Court in Benin refuses to rule on term limits. Drug regulator in Nigeria seeks death penalty for drug peddlers. And still ahead, Liberia's President Boakai launches electronic government procurement system to enhance efficiency. We also have the guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Don't forget, you can listen to us live on wadr.org and join our live streaming on YouTube and Facebook. A global summit on the formalization of the economy and the employment sector is being held in Côte d'Ivoire and came to a close on Thursday. The summit theme, Innovative Strategies for Inclusive Prosperity, was organized by the International Organization of Employers in collaboration with the General Confederation of Enterprises of Côte d'Ivoire and co-founded by the European Union (EU). Participants included private sector actors, representatives of international organizations, and Ivorian ministers. Ahmed Sisse is the president of the General Confederation of Enterprises of Côte d'Ivoire. He urged all stakeholders to play their part.
In light of the impacts resulting from the migration from the informal sector to the formal sector, all parties are engaged. The private sector and civil society are each called upon to play their part. We believe that together we will identify and implement effective and beneficial solutions for everyone. The private sector, for its part, is ready to become more involved in this secure transformation of the economy towards shared prosperity.
However, to address the challenges of formalizing economic activities, Adama Kamara, the Ivorian Minister of Employment and Social Protection, said the government is multiplying its efforts to reverse the trend.
Since 2019, Ivory Coast has adopted a new strategy for transitioning to a formal economy. This important and powerful governance tool is entering its deployment phase until the year 2025, following the pilot phase. It aims to facilitate the gradual transition of Ivorian economies to a formal economy involving key actors from the informal market and artisans.
Adama Kamara is the Ivorian Minister of Employment and Social Protection. Well, in the context of the fight against climate change, the Senegalese government is reaffirming its determination to promote environmental resilience through the Great Green Wall GMV initiative, a strategic project for ecological restoration and sustainable development. The Senegalese Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko on Friday opened the fourth extraordinary session of the Council of Ministers of the Pan-African Agency of the Great Green Wall, launching an urgent call for the remobilization of member states. As climate change and its impact become more increasingly worrying, Sonko stressed the need to reinvigorate the agency to address current environmental challenges. He reaffirmed Senegal's full commitment to this Pan-African initiative. In line with the National Transformation Agenda, Senegal 2050, the Prime Minister prioritizes the restoration of ecosystems, the promotion of resilient agriculture, and the preservation of natural resources. This session marks a crucial moment to strengthen regional cooperation in the face of climate and environmental challenges. In a significant move towards improving public procurement practices in Liberia, President Joseph Boakai has launched the Electronic Government Procurement EGP system, mandating its use by all government procuring entities. This initiative, according to the President, aims to bolster transparency, efficiency, and accountability within Liberia's procurement processes. During the launch, President Boakai emphasized the system's importance in combating corruption and promoting economic growth through a streamlined digital procurement process.
Corruption has stood as a stubborn menace that has for decades rocked the foundation of this nation and dissipated our drive for socio-economic development. And we must all agree that it is through corruption. As a government, we place high premium on the fight against corruption, and we are very serious about it. This is evident by my administration's support to upholding all pieces of legislation on public procurement and public financial management.
Also speaking, Borja Scott Johnson, Executive Director of the Public Procurement and Concessions Commission, noted that the launch will enhance effectiveness and transparency.
Manual and paper-based procurement systems have been brought by inefficiency, delays, and limited accessibility for businesses, while hampered by bureaucratic bottlenecks in some instances.
Was Borja Scott Johnson, Executive Director of the Public Procurement and Concessions Commission.
Politics,
Analysis on major news,
social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest this evening is Mamadou Cho, Chairperson of COREP, the Council for Compliance with Rules of Ethics and Professional Conduct of Media in Senegal. Cho speaks about Thursday's published revised list of recognized media outlets in the country, which the government says aims to sanitize the sector. COREP's chairperson explains in details the criteria for review of the provisional list first announced last December.
I mean, the criteria are all in the law governing the press, what we call the Code de la Presse in Senegal. It has been adopted by the National Assembly in 2017, which mean for the television, when you want to operate it, what are the criteria for a radio station, for a website, and for a written press, dailies or weeklies or things like those. Or for all of these, when you go to this law, it's specified according to the journalistic criteria. Today, to lead a website, you should be graduated from journalism school and at least have a 10-year experience. So they apply that criteria. That's why you see that many websites have been set aside because there were over 200 and something like that. But at the end of the day, more than half cannot meet that criteria. And it's the same with the dailies and things like that. What we call person who is at the top of the newsroom should have the same criteria, meaning graduating from journalism school and experiencing 10 years in the job. And for television and for radio, you have to be authorized by what we call the CNRA here in Senegal, which is the regulatory board of the media set up by the government.
There have been reactions, especially from CEDEPS, one of the professional bodies or executives of the broadcast media in Senegal, rejecting this announced or revised list of media stations. One of the arguments there is that this is a deliberate attempt by the state to clamp down on media operators or media owners.
No, in fact, this is not a new thing done by government, because with the former regime of President Macky Sall, they were doing it, but maybe it had not been done in the same way. Because when we compare to the first list published at the end of November, early December, the reaction was harsh because it was a list of only 112 media recognized, and for the new list, we go up to 258, which means it's double, more than double. And all those who were reacting, negatively in the first list, in the new list, because they cannot at a time meet the criteria, and they done what had been required, and they are now in the new list, and something people were asking for, because when you look at the media landscape, at the time, there's a freedom of entrepreneurship, but some people were using it for very, very bad reasons. That's why we say that it's very good now to get a list and know who are the media adjusting to the law of the press.
So for clarity's sake, Mamadou Cho, this is not permanent. Any of the media stations that is right now not among the officially recognized media outlets by the state can revisit the set criteria. Once they recognize the requirements, they can or will be re-enlisted.
That's it. It's permanent. It's like the press card. It never stops. As soon as all these media can try to meet the criteria, they can come back to the platform, because it's a platform online. We show that, they are doing it and in a very transparent way. So there's nothing to worry about. All these media can try to see what has gone wrong and try to correct. And then if they correct, they can put in the list, and the list can be updated. There is nothing to worry about that.
Is your organization, in collaboration of stakeholders in the media industry, doing all they can to make sure that press freedom and, of course, the right to access to information in Senegal is not threatened or under attack?
Yeah, I think we can be confident about the reform which has been undertaken with the new regime, because at the time we are talking, they are working on a new law regarding advertisement. And for the private press, advertisement is very key, because they can get more means from advertisement to make ends meet, because that's not the case right now. The last law governing advertisement is from the early 1980s and is not up to the date. So there is a new regulatory body which will be replacing what we call the CNR now. It's only governing the television and the radio, and set aside have no competence on what we call the online press and the written press. And the new main body we are working on, and which will be created maybe March or something like April, will be new things which come and try to govern all the media landscape and try to regulate them. Even what we call the social media will be part of this new body. So they are trying to implement reform which are going in the right way.
Mamadou Cho is the chairperson of COREP, the Council of Compliance with Rules of Ethics and Professional Conduct of Media in Senegal. And here is Sport News with Sankle Janko.
Hello there, warm welcome and thank you for joining us. The 18 Ghana Premier League clubs have condemned in the strongest term all acts of hooliganism and violence that have marred the beautiful game in recent games, according to a press statement. The tragic incident that occurred at the Swaman FC vs Asante Kotoko SC match, resulting in the loss of life of a loyal Kotoko fan, Francis Nana Frimpong, is particularly disturbing and unacceptable. The 18 clubs said they stand in solidarity with the family of the deceased and extended their deepest condolences to them as well as to the entire Asante Kotoko SC fraternity. The clubs have also committed to promoting fair play, sportsmanship and respect for the game, its officials and spectators. They further went on to say they will not tolerate any form of hooliganism, violence or intimidation at match centres. In a meeting held on Thursday, February 6, 2025 at the GFA Secretariat, all Premier League clubs have agreed to enhance match-day security protocols. These enhanced protocols will form basis of an Executive Council meeting of the GFA on Friday, 7 February 2025, after which the comprehensive guidelines will be published ahead of the resumption of the Premier League season, according to media reports. The clubs also pledged to work hand in hand with the Ghana Football Association, the security agencies and other stakeholders to ensure that those responsible for the criminal acts are apprehended and brought to justice. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
And that's it on this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mamadou Diouf and Cheng Jai for the technical support. To interact with us on our social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram at WDR News, and Facebook West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is our flagship security program in the Sahel. I am Imo Edet. Thank you for your time.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, New Me FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio.